So today, we're diving into a really harrowing first-person account from inside a high-security penal psychiatry unit. It's a place the author, who we'll call the buyer, refers to as Black Site Berlin. This is a look into a world that's meant to be hidden, a system that's operating under the cover of so-called treatment.
Okay, let's just start with this. Death by showering. I mean, what does that even mean? How could showering possibly be deadly? Well, the answer to that really pulls back the curtain on the completely twisted logic of the place the buyer was thrown into.
So, picture this. After a year and a half on a crisis ward, the buyer gets transferred to a new place, Station 7A. It was sold to him as a normal station, which, gives you this sense of hope, right? An expectation of improvement, a step toward getting better. But that expectation, it was about to be shattered. Instantly.
And his new home? A triple room. Now, this isn't just about not having your own space. No, his entire existence, his very survival, was about to be defined by the two guys he was forced to live with 24/7.
So the buyer's daily life basically became a two-front war. On one side, you've got the Indian fan, who is this source of constant psychological attack, and on the other side, the Messi, who is just this walking, visceral, unhygienic assault on every single one of your senses. And the psychological abuse, wow, it was just nonstop. See, the Indian fan didn't just have these beliefs. He paraded them around. He celebrated them, openly. So the buyer had to listen to his disturbing music, his justifications for his crimes, and see the pedophile flag used as the background on their shared TV.
Now, the main tool the institution had for dealing with offenders like this was castration, either chemical or, in this case, surgical. But, as the buyer found out from talking to a bunch of inmates, it was hardly a magic bullet. For many, the desire was still there, just dampened, and a lot of them ended up reoffending.
But as horrible as all that psychological stuff was, the way the buyer describes the Indian fan's hygiene, well, that was a much more immediate and, frankly, a much more dangerous physical threat. And you have to understand, this wasn't just someone being messy or sick. No, this was a calculated, deliberate weaponization of his own body. He was actively contaminating their shared room with his infected blood, and then using his own waste as a tool to try and manipulate the staff. And then there was the other roommate, the Messi, who brought his own special kind of horror to the room. The buyer's bed was literally right next to this guy's closet, which was, it was basically a biohazard zone. It was just packed with old newspapers and rotting food, all of it slowly fusing together into one solid block of garbage inches from where he had to sleep. And it took 4 months. 4 months of complaining before the staff finally did something about it. And when they did, it took 5 of those huge industrial garbage bags to clean out that closet. Just think about that. It's a perfect symbol of the filth he lived in and the institutional neglect that just let it happen.
And just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. The whole thing goes from disgusting to straight-up life-threatening. The Indian fan, knowing he couldn't win a physical fight, threatened the buyer with the ultimate biological weapon. So now the buyer had to try and sleep with a constant fear of being intentionally infected.
So you're probably thinking, why didn't he just get out of the room, right? Well, the problem was there was no real escape. The story of another patient, a guy named Rain, really shows you how the chaos and desperation just soaked through the whole station.
This just lays out the brutal reality they were living in. As awful and dangerous as it was inside the institution, for a lot of these guys, the outside world was even worse. Rain's journey is it's absurd. From getting beaten, to escaping, to literally chasing a fox for his shoe, only to end up right back where he started. It shows you the vicious cycle that kept them trapped. Okay, so after 6 months of living in this absolute hell, which the buyer says felt like forever, he finally gets a transfer. He's moved to a new room.
And you can just imagine, for that one brief moment, there must have been this little spark of hope, right? A new room, different roommates, anything had to be better than what he'd just been through. A chance to finally take a deep breath.
Yeah, that hope was snuffed out instantly, because one of his new roommates was the exact same guy who had threatened to rape him back on the crisis ward. He literally escaped one nightmare only to be locked in a room with a brand new one.
So now he's trapped in this brand new, terrifying situation. He's got no choice but to adapt. Survival now means accepting this totally absurd, dangerous reality as his new normal.
But in the middle of all this horror, the buyer actually found a really weird, twisted silver lining. He'd just quit smoking, right?
Well, being trapped 24/7 with two chain smokers created such a powerful disgust for the smell, it ended up being the best quitting program he could have asked for.
And this last story, man, it really says it all. So one roommate had this tobacco tin he used as an ashtray, and it was always smoldering, filling the room with this awful smoke. The other roommate, the potential rapist, just gets fed up, grabs the tin, and dumps the entire thing, hot ash, cigarette butts, everything, right into the smoker's coffee. And the smoker, he just drinks it. The whole cup. Doesn't even flinch.
That final picture, right? A man just calmly drinking coffee filled with ash? It perfectly captures the level of desensitization you need just to survive in a place like that. The shocking just becomes another Tuesday. The disgusting becomes normal. And the buyer's whole account really leaves us with this one deeply unsettling question. If this is the treatment, what on earth was the illness?